Thank you for joining us for another episode of Issuer Insights brought to you by ETF Market Canada, where we invite industry experts to join us and share their insights on the world of investing and ideas for your portfolio. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by Alex Lee, who is the Canadian head of ETF product strategy with Franklin Templeton Investments. Alex, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me here today.
Now, you've been very busy traveling coast to coast from Vancouver to Montreal, meeting with advisors. Perhaps you could share a bit of detail about what you're learning from those conversations.
It's always great to be on the road to connect in person. The word uncertainty comes up quite a bit, especially with trade policies, tariffs, and impact it's having on both our economy as well as the markets. What we've been able to share is just timely ideas to navigate this period of volatility, uncertainty. And we've had really great engagement and conversations. And surprisingly, Bobby the dog came up a couple of times in conversations as well. So he's having definitely a follower.
That's great. Okay, let's talk about ETF inflows. Always a hot topic. What can you tell us about where investors are putting their money right now? And what does that tell us about the sentiment that investors have about the market?
I think we're on a track for another record year in terms of flows following last year's. And this year, we're seeing a balance between flows in both equities and fixed income. So equities aren't the only game in town. And specifically on the equity side, we've seen flows in international and global side. So that tells me that investors are trying to diversify more geographically. And then on the fixed income side, we've seen flows in both, aggregates, corporates, ultra short money markets. So very selective in where they're investing in, but as well utilizing wider toolkits to diversify their fixed income portfolios.
International equities, as you mentioned, have emerged then as a really key theme of an asset class. What do you think is driving that sort of renewed focus in that space?
So, coming into the year, we've heard a lot of concerns about concentration risk within the top weighted stocks of the S&P 500 or any US equities, as well as stretch valuations. And so investors were already looking at other opportunities outside of the core areas that's done really well last couple of years. And I think what's working right now is, of course, performance has been very strong coming out of Europe, parts of Asia, even LATAM as well. So that's created a renewed interest. And valuations are relatively attractive. So if you compare S&P 500 or any US equity versus the non-US, the PE or price earnings multiple differentials almost at 2 standard deviation in terms of the differential. So it's very wide and extreme, and I think that's catching a lot of attention as well.
Yeah, that's really good perspective about where and why you're getting interest in those international equity ETFs. What's setting them apart in the current environment, the international ETFs that you have under your platform?
So we have two that comes up quite a bit. So we have FLUR, which is a passive low-cost solution. So the management fee for that is only 9 basis points for exposure to developed international markets. And it's actually the lowest cost when you look at both management fee and MER in the category. So it's gained a lot of popularity. The one that we get asked the most and where I'm having a lot of conversation is our low vol high div international ETF, FLVI. So that is working in the current environment. It's generating income, it's managing volatility risk, and it's performing quite well in this environment of uncertainty. So that's one probably where I'm having a lot more conversations lately.
So Alex, can you just walk us through FLVI and strategically how it's different?
Yeah, so FLVI is a smart beta strategy that's focused on multi-factor. So generating high income, also managing volatility or lower volatility risk. And so what's unique about this is that most of the smart betas that we come across are singular in the sense that they're maybe trying to generate higher income, have cheap valuations, growth. What we're trying to do is find two factors that are very complementary to each other. So income and price, volatility. And I think the way we design the robustness of it is where I think how we differentiate. So when we're looking at high income, we're not just looking for the highest dividends, but we also incorporate earnings measure to ensure that dividends are sustainable and that we can pay those out. And volatility, we're not just looking at price, but also earnings. We like companies that have consistent earnings. And price volatility is really important because you don't want high distribution or dividends just coming from lower prices. That's just one part of the return. So the balance of the two is where I think it's working well in this environment.
FLVI sounds quite interesting. I'm sure people will find that timely. Now, I think we'd be remiss not to talk about fixed income and its impact. Amid shifting rate expectations, of course, the Fed just stayed. Are there any strategies that stand out particularly resilient or timely for you right now?
So FHIS, our Canadian ultra short-term bond ETF, continues to resonate with investors. So again, we've seen volatility both equity and fixed income markets to start the year. If you look at even FTSE Canada Universe Bond Index on a year-to-date basis as of mid-June, it's up less than 50 basis points. So it's trailing cash in this market environment. So seen a lot of ups and downs, and I think clients are looking for more certainty, more income. And so ultra short comes up quite a bit. And just put numbers in context, the bond universe so far, if you look at the 5-year spectrum, hasn't actually generated a positive return. And so that's been concerning for investors that have been in those core areas. Not to say that that's not an opportunity going forward, and it's an important part of the market, but there's case to be made that investors really need to diversify. And ultra short isn't just a cash parking spot, but it should be a strategic allocation within portfolios.
So before we wrap up today, maybe do you have any parting thoughts for advisors who are having to navigate these challenging markets?
Yeah, firstly, want to thank our clients for supporting us. I mean, we've seen a lot of great support coming out of these uncertain periods. So very humbling to see a lot of those great support and flows. What I like to leave with is just being very intentional about where you and how you invest. So this is a year where we see in discipline, selectivity, and diversification really pay off. And so those are really important themes. Lastly, I'd like to thank Siebel for this opportunity to share our insights.
Well, Alex, thank you for sharing your insights with us today on this episode. To our audience, thank you again for joining us for another episode of Issuer Insights, brought to you by ETF Market Canada and sponsored by Franklin Templeton Investments. If you'd like to learn more, please visit franklintempleton.ca.